recently with the new Pope. He's from Chicago, and a lot of Chicago jokes. But there was another cardinal who had made comments about supporting the LGBTQ community. I forgot. He was the guy from the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was big concern over his views on overtly cultural political issues. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, how could there be truth in an ever-evolving political climate that tries to adhere to politics?
Well, that's the biggest problem with the Catholic Church historically, is it's very intertwined with politics. Always has been.
Personally, my opinion is that the Catholic Church is trying to maintain as large a base as possible. And so you end up with people like Francis, and I forgot the name of this guy, this Filipino guy who said some, like all these gay websites, I mean literally gay websites, not insulting them.
Like
were
Vatican.va?
Oh.
The gay website?
No, there's like Pink News, I think it was, and like LGBT Nation or whatever, were saying like, this is the good guy, he should be the Pope. Because he was saying things like it's time to recognize gay marriage or whatever, or like things like that, going beyond what Francis had said with blessings.
The Vaticanistas all said that this is what, between him and the Cardinal of Bologna and some of the other far left cardinals that were considered popable at the last conclave last month, this is specifically why they weren't selected, even though they're considered most papably, because we tried this with Francis, and it's true. I would never deny, as probably one of Francis's best known American lay critics, who is Catholic, the Church is trying a bad approach to winning over converts since a little bit before Vatican II. And what they're actually finding now, and the boomers and the dinosaurs in the cardinalate are finding to their chagrin, is that they're really mad about it. Francis hated it. He said these people have psychological problems. They like to go to the Latin Mass. They like to go back to the Mass of the Ages. This
is what I see in the trends as well, that we're finding that Gen Z, younger Gen Z, not older Gen Z, are finding faith in Jesus Christ. That polling was non-denominational. It was just, they were saying it. So, the men are leaning more conservative. And then, I suppose it's a factor in that Catholicism is so big. And when the Pope when the Pope passed away and they were choosing the new Pope, it's the biggest story in the world. So I can understand it. It just feels like they're lying to people to try and build up membership numbers. That's what it feels like.
I agree. You want to get into lies of the Roman Catholic Church? Like the donation of Constantine, for example.
And this is not
that time that his church told the world that Constantine gave them the entire Western Empire to be their domain.
To clarify, I'm not saying this of Catholics. I'm saying that the current leadership seem to be their political strategy of, we need more converts, so let's say what we have to say to get them to convert.
And my church is doing the opposite thing. We separated from the larger church because we felt that they were doing that.
Again, separating, as I said earlier, makes you not a part of that thing.
Sure. What were you going to say?
So the point that I raised earlier about the papacy.
All right, wait. Let's move on.
The papacy, we didn't separate. We believe they left us.
And we believe they left us.
That's why I did an internal critique, which you don't understand. But
no, you didn't make your argument was veiled in esoteric language.
We don't need to keep going.
You excommunicate iconoclasts.
Esoteric language, the basic terms of this debate.
Make your point on.
So the issue with unum sanctum, all the way up to the syllabus of errors in the 1800s, where you had to believe in the temporal power and supremacy of the Roman bishop to be saved. It was mandated all that time for those centuries to be necessary to be saved, which the Vatican no longer believes for salvific purposes. They might theoretically still believe it, who knows, but I think Vatican II contradicts that with the dechristianizing principles. But the point is that ever since the Papal States, ever since the 11th century, especially with the Gregorian reforms, the papacy has united itself with and tied itself into politics at an intense level. And that's not all totally the fault of Rome or just power seeking. You had the collapse of the Roman Empire, which led to the vacuum that allowed the papacy to step in. But by the time that we get to Dictatus Papae, just a couple things that we have in this document, the Pope alone can use the imperial insignia. All princes in the world must kiss the Pope's feet. This is the only name in the world. He alone may depose all emperors. He alone may confirm all bishops. The Roman See has never erred and will never err unto the end of time. The Roman Church is founded by God alone. The Roman Church alone can call itself universal. It can alone depose depose or reinstate bishops. Now, already we've seen that from Dictatus Papae in the 11th century, that's a contradiction with the way the councils acted and operated in the first several centuries. So the Roman bishop becomes a geopolitical world power, particularly in the 11th century, comes to its nadir, you could say, a few centuries later, and it is still intimately tied up with geopolitics because the CIA had a huge alliance with the Vatican during the Cold War and at Vatican II on record, and many Catholic writers.
So explain Vatican II?
So this is the council in the 1960s that was called by John the 23rd originally to update, to make the Roman See and the Roman Church more amenable to the world. Aggiornamento was his terminology, to open the doors and to let the world into the church.
Would you agree with that assessment, or
no? So Vatican II was. I mean, it's true that it was
all
called
those
by.
statements are true.
It's true that it was called by John the 23rd. But what happened at the end of Vatican I? In the 1870s, is the Franco-Prussian War interrupted it. Vatican I is famous. If we look at both of the last two councils of the Roman Catholic Church, Vatican I and Vatican II, they're both vastly misunderstood. The reason Vatican I is vastly misunderstood is because the Franco-Prussian War interrupted it, literally in between the two goals of Vatican I, laying out the power of the Pope, clarifying the power of the Pope, as it had always been for 2,000 years, 1,800 years, and laying out the power of the bishops, because it is a collegial relationship that the Pope has to them, even though he is the Prince of the Apostles. It got interrupted and separated by the Franco-Prussian War. So Vatican II, so it ended up looking, by the way, like just the Pope's powers were laid out. The powers of the bishops were never adumbrated because of the sudden conclusion of that. It was never actually concluded until John the 23rd concluded it almost 100 years later, 85 years later, right before he said, okay, we need to have a Vatican II to get to what the power of the bishops are.
What was Vatican I?
Vatican I laid out definitively what the power of the
meeting?
Pope was. Yeah,
It's an
all of these are
ecumenical council.
ecumenical
council, which means that it was a full council of the church called by an emperor.
Not in all
No
cases
emperor
by an
in all
emperor.
cases.
No. It was the first 7 were called by emperors. Some more were called by emperors. Council of Florence was, but an ecumenical just means that ecumenical council just means that it's all the world, all the bishops of the world. Vatican I concludes suddenly, getting just to what the power of the Pope is, which gave it a lopsided look, our ecclesiology afterwards. Vatican II needed to be held to get to what the power of the bishops were. Once we started getting more liberal popes like John the 23rd and Paul VI, who are the two popes alive during Vatican II in the 1960s, they changed the agenda. Actually, it was Karl Rahner and Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, who a lot of people think was a right-winger in the church. He was not. He and Rahner together changed the agenda from finishing what Vatican I was supposed to do, lay out the power of the bishops, to what he called aggiornamento, updating the church, doing essentially liberal things. Now, the documents themselves are not bad. The documents themselves are
You sure about that?
insinuative. Yeah.
Can I read some of the documents in a minute?
Yeah, once I get done, yeah.
Sure.
The documents themselves are insinuative of a more liberal position, and they were intentionally written in such a way that they would be that they could be weaponized later. Lots of the council fathers that were Rahnerites admitted this. Things like, what's our relationship to be with the Muslims? Jay made reference to this earlier. What's our relationship to be with the Hindus? And it sounded more liberal. Really what they were doing was quoting things from Pope Pius X, a very based older pope. They're quoting even from medieval popes who acknowledged things like, technically speaking, the Muslims are monotheists. Technically, they're one of the Western religions. Technically, they worship the one true God, but they worship the one true God in the false way. Trads, rad trads, Orthodox, everyone gets worked up about this, but it turns out that this is a very, very old medieval term that the church had.
Is that the same for Hinduism? Because Vatican II says the same about Hinduism.
They believe.
No, it doesn't. Not about Hindus. Hindus, not Muslims. Hindus.
Okay, read what it says about Hindus.
Thus, in Hinduism, people explore the divine mystery and
they explore it
and express it. How do you explore the true mystery of God.
Explore. You can explore and
In a
not find
false
what you're
religion?
looking for.
No, you don't. You
What are you saying?
don't explore Christianity.
It's
and
an
Hinduism.
absolutely
You
false
don't explore
religion,
Christianity and Hinduism. They seek release from the trials of the present life through ascetic practices and meditation and recourse to God in confidence.
I agree. All that's bad, but you missed the term.
So it's bad.
My uncle Remus.
So
My uncle Remus believes he
your
can fly.
dogma-
Jay's like, your uncle can fly.
No, this is your dogmatic statements that are supposed to provide clarity.
Right.
They need to be
explore.
interpreted by you
So-
because they're ambiguous.
No.
Are they
this
clear
is
or ambiguous?
Perfectly clear.
They're
the Hindus
really. You just said it was bad.
explore the
you
divine
said it was
mystery.
bad.
Wait, but let
Is
me
it
say
clear or bad?
You finish, Jay. I'll go after you're done.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.